I left my other water bottle in my daughter's car. Aha. Hi, readers. It's Lori. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another episode of Then They Were Murdered. This is a concept that I started, I think, this year, and I've really enjoyed it. I love talking about mystery thrillers. I love talking about authors that I've read or that I haven't read. And the other day, when I was pulling these books out for the concept here, I was refreshing my memory about them, which made me want to reread them all. But I was also concerned about like what happens if I run out of books to talk about on this series and then they were murdered. And I thought, well, how could you? Because you don't have to do an episode about books that you own, right? So again, my opportunities, my possibilities, my goals could change, right? But in this case, I do own every book that this author has so far written, and that is Ruth Ware. Yeah, you already knew because I put it up on the title, right? I love Ruth Ware. I'm so excited to share more about her with you because she is one of my favorite authors. And I have read everything mystery thriller related that she's written. Stay tuned for what else she's written, except for one. So I'm almost a Ruth Ware completist. And that I can say in all truth because the other books she wrote were written with her actual birth name. So that might be a surprise to you, as it was to me. So let's talk about that a little bit and a little bit about her background. So Ruth Warburton was born in Lewes, I don't know, UK, Lewes. I never pronounce things well. She was born in 1977, so she's definitely a younger woman and a younger author. Her name was changed to Ruth Ware because she had written a series of other books that were YA fantasy, and she didn't want people to confuse her with the YA fantasy writer when she started to publish mystery thrillers. So that's when she became Ruth Ware. She was a waitress for a period of time. She was a bookseller. She was a publicist, and she even taught English as a foreign language in France at one time. So she's had kind of a robust life. I don't know a lot about Ruth Ware except that she's pretty prolific and that she's very well liked and very often interviewed. I will also say that one of my favorite things about Ruth Ware is that she is an author who's very Agatha Christie-esque. A lot of people say this. I don't think it upsets her. I think that was purposeful for her because she said she was a huge fan of Agatha Christie novels. So many of her novels will mimic Agatha Christie's closed circle or isolated group mysteries like Murder on the Orient Express. Agatha Christie was the author that really catapulted that trope into the world of readers, and it continues to this day to be a trope that is often used. And I don't care how often it's used, I still love it. Most of these have that plot, but there are some that are a little bit outside of that. And there are some that remind you of another author, and there are some that remind me. There's one that reminds me of I don't know if it was a book, but it was a series or a movie when I was young. So there's lots of things that she, I think, explores and expands upon. And recently, she's written some things that are really kind of tied to things that are happening now versus when she first started writing. So we'll talk about that in a minute, but I can't wait to share all of these with you. But first, let me tell you about the YA fantasy books, because again, I didn't know anything about this. So just to remind you, these are going to be written by Ruth Warburton, and there are five of them. Yes, five of them. So the first one is A Witch Alone. Let me look at my notes because I don't want to take this off track. A Witch Alone, which was published in 2013. A Witch in Winter, which was published in 2013. A Witch in Love, which was published in 2013. Witchfinder, which was published in 2014, and Witch Hunt was published in 2014. So I've never seen books that were published like book like that before, but apparently Hodder's Children's Books is the publisher. I don't know if they're still available. This was very much news to me when I started doing my research on her, and so I will be investigating. I don't know if I'll read those, but again, because I did not read anything by Ruth Warburton, I don't have to say I'm a Ruth Ware completist because I also read those because she published them under a different name. See how clever I got there? Her themes that she writes about, in addition to some closed circle, isolated trope books, she also has some fairly common themes: paranoia, secrets, fear, um, just difficult relationships, sometimes revenge. I really, really enjoy some of the ways in which she brings these characters together and the ways in which she develops them so that you are very aware of who they are. You're not certain, at least I've not been certain, about who is going to be the person who is responsible for the death. But it's very interesting how she takes each place and it becomes a character in my mind as well. In each of these books, I remember equally as much about the characters and about what they did as I remember the setting and the atmosphere. And I think that that for me is very helpful. And that's a bit of a departure from Agatha Christie because most of her novels were set in the same place. They were the same detectives. There was just a lot of similarity in them, whereas these are often very different settings for sure and way different relationships, way different people. So that is really why these are must buys for me, these are must keeps for me, and these are usually unput downable. So let's talk about how I read these in order. I have read them in order, so that's been lovely. I happened to stumble upon In a Dark, Dark Wood by accident. I think this one came out in 2015. To be quite honest, I don't remember how I found out about this book, but I'm so grateful that I did. I recently bought it in hardback from a Pango seller, and I really wanted to have each one of them physically. And when I first started reading her, I wasn't sure if I was going to like her, so I didn't get it. I'm glad I got it in hardback. It matches all the others, which sometimes I am sort of picky about. This one is about a woman who is receives an invitation to a hen party or a bachelorette party from a friend who she knew in school years before. They had not spoken since then, and there was a bit of a difficulty between the two of them. So she's very surprised that this woman would invite her to this hen party because she just did not see herself as a person who would be on that list. So Lenora is a writer, very reclusive, very focused on herself and her life, and not easy to make friends. And again, she doesn't leave her house or doesn't do a whole lot because she just doesn't really like people. But a friend she hasn't spoken to in a really long time says she's going on a weekend away in an eerie glass house, and she reluctantly says she will go. When she gets to the glass house, obviously there are other people who are there, other hens, if you will, and the relationships start to come alive for you in the novel, and then something tragic happens, and I'm not going to tell you what it is, but it has a really interesting ending. I will never forget that. I was just glued. I think I probably read this one in 2 days. It's not terribly large, and I gave this one 5 stars. I really, really loved this one. It was like the best entrance into this Ruth Ware canon. The next one is The Woman in Cabin 10, and this one came out in 2016, year after. And I remember reading this one not long after it came out. I was pretty sure I was going to, at that point, read anything she ever wrote. And this one, as you can probably tell, is set on a cruise ship. Okay. And this woman, whose name is Lo, And that's important for you to remember in a minute. So Lo has been given an assignment to go on a cruise ship and write a review about the cruise. And she's, of course, going to be chatting with the other passengers on the ship. And she really wants to make this a great assignment for her. And so she's at sea on this cruise ship, and it had a really weird name, but it doesn't say in the synopsis what it was. Oh, yes, it does. The Aurora. So she's in the North Sea, and Lo hears something in the cabin next to her, cabin 10, and she thinks that a woman was thrown overboard. This happens in the middle of the night. So she reports this having happened, and nobody believes her because there is no evidence that anyone else was supposed to be on the ship. So, in other words, this passenger that she thinks was in cabin 10 and that was thrown overboard, there's no record of who she was, and there's no record that she was on the ship at all. And so Lo is determined to try to find out what happened because she knows what she heard and she knows what it was. Like, she's very, very upset. Loved it. Stay tuned in a minute for another glimpse at Lo. Then The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. This one was a little less isolated, but it still was definitely. So this is about a woman walking her dog in a little idyllic village named The Reach, and the dog charges into the water to retrieve something, which ends up being what? A body. So the next morning, three women, and this is why I really open this because I want to make sure I get their names right. Fatima, Thea, and Isa receive a text that they were hoping would never come. And this is from someone that they know. And she says, I need you. These four girls were best friends in their childhood. They were at a second-rate boarding school. The boarding school, as I remember, was not good. These were not kind people, and it was a mess. So they also were notorious for playing something that was called the lying game, and they got in trouble for it a lot. But they also did some things that they were hoping did not resurface. And when they hear about what happened the day before, they all now need to come together and have a conversation about this. So it's a little less isolated, but it is isolated in the sense that they were in a boarding school and then they weren't, and they come back together to sort this out. Loved it. And I don't think I told you what I gave the woman in cabin 10 for a rating. I'm just all over the place today, right? I gave that one 4 stars and I gave this one 5 stars. I liked it just a little bit more, just a titch more. Let me start from the beginning by telling you that I gave The Death of Mrs. Westaway 4 stars. This one is about a woman who is really down on her luck. She's a tarot reader and she works for one of those, like, what do we call them here? We call them like festivals, or we have farmers markets on the weekends and things where they have other people that do other things. But it's one of those places where everybody sets up a booth and they sell or offer whatever it is that they do. And this particular character, whose name is Harriet Westaway, receives a letter saying that she's received a substantial inheritance from her grandmother because she doesn't have any grandparents that are still alive. She's very confused about this because they died a long, long time ago. And so she doesn't know what to do, but she also doesn't have a lot of money, and they're offering her a house. And she could then, of course, sell it or live in it rent-free, right? Whatever needs to happen. She's really struggling. Tarot reading is not working out as well as she had hoped it would. And so I did enjoy this one because I do have sort of a fascination with tarot cards, and I own a number of them. I don't do a whole lot with them, but I just think they're pretty and unique. But nevertheless, she finds herself at Trespassen, which is an estate in the English countryside, and the family is all there of this woman who died, and she knows nothing about these people, but she also quickly realizes that something is really wrong. Something is not normal. And I love this cover. This is one of my favorite covers of hers because it just looks so creepy, spooky with the crows and the vultures and yes, Yes, it was great. So the next one is The Turn of the Key. So this came out in 2019. I realized later on, not when I first started reading it, that this was a retelling of Henry James' novel, The Turn of the Screw. And so I actually read that not long after I finished this because I wanted to see some of the similarities. And I get it. It's not billed that way in the synopsis, but it is definitely it yeah, it works. It works both ways. But I liked this one more than I liked The Turn of the Screw because I gave that 3 stars, but this one I gave 5 stars too. So this one was another one that I just thought was perfect. The Turn of the Key is about a young woman who is asked to be a nanny for this couple, and they live in this fancy, fancy place. It's this beautiful home that is very glass-like as well, and it has all these weird features to it. It's electronically like wired to things you wouldn't even imagine someone could do. And her name is Rowan Kane, and it's a really good salary. And again, Rowan is not the most um, successful person, does not have a lot of money. And so she discovers this place in the Scottish Highlands is incredible. And what she doesn't know is that something terrible is going to happen while she's there playing nanny, and she's going to be accused of something awful as well. But what I loved about this is that it has 2 timelines, and it tells you in the synopsis that this begins with her in prison, and she's trying to tell her attorney what happened. So that's all I'm going to say because I don't want you to know what happens. But she knows now that there was surveillance all over the house, and I think she knew that from the beginning. There were cameras everywhere. And she knows that she did lie at some point to obtain the job. So she manufactured some experience that she didn't have, but she's not guilty of what they're accusing her of. And I absolutely, yes, yes, and yes. I keep saying I love these, but I absolutely love this. Not kidding. It was really, really great. I love this cover too. And I just am so grateful that I have found this author. I'm swooning, right? If I ever met this woman in real life, it would be quite something. All right, now this one I gave 4 stars to, and this is not one of the ones that like blew me away, but I still enjoyed it. Definitely. This is about a corporate retreat. This is kind of a trope that shows up more than once. I think this has happened recently where I read one of these where everybody goes off and, they work together. And so they're going to have this like fancy thing, but they go off on a ski resort trip. And so they're all in this place and they're isolated and they're, I think, having some conversations, as I remember, about their work. This one came out in 2020. And it's also obviously a Book of the Month Club selection for me that year, but I really did enjoy this one. It just wasn't one of my favorite standouts. But again, they're in the French Alps and it's beautiful. And there's all these opportunities and lavish food and places where they can go and they all want to ski, right? And the name of this company is Snoop. It is a London-based startup organization, and they have a week-long trip to the Alps. That's a lot of time to spend with people that you work with in a setting like that. But they are going to, again, have some training and different things. But then a storm happens, and they're all skiing, and I'm just not going to say it, but I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to say it's really, really good. Really, really good. I loved it. It was hard for me to figure out what was happening for sure. The next one I liked a lot, 4 stars, The It Girl. I enjoyed it very, very much. This one didn't come out long ago either. Also Book of the Month. You can see not a lot of people get this many Book of the Month Club publishers or publishings as Ruth Ware got. This came out in 2022. This is dual timeline, which is unusual for Ruth Ware. But you do usually get past memories brought forward for you when you read one of her books. So she definitely dives back into the relationships with other people or the circumstances, of course, that happened to these folks. But in this case, this is about a group of youth who were in college, I think, and they all became friends. And there was what they called an it girl. Her name was April. And April was just friendly to everybody. And she met Hannah. Hannah, again, a bit reclusive, a bit shy, a bit not easy to make friends with kind of a girl. And I wonder if Ruth Ware's personality, as I talk to you about this, is more introverted or extroverted because she kind of writes both very, very well. But nevertheless, April, Hannah, Will, and a couple of other people whose names I don't remember now are all friends, Ryan and Hugh and Emily. So now you know. And they're all doing all kinds of things together. But by the end of the term, April is dead, and they don't know why this person that has been accused of killing April would have done this. But it is somebody that they know. It was somebody that worked at the college. Fast forward. Hannah is married to Will. She is pregnant, as I remember, or did just have a child. Let me see if it says. Yes, she's expecting her first child. And the man who was convicted of killing April has died in prison. And a young journalist approaches Hannah and says, I really want to have conversation with you because I don't think that that guy killed April at all. I have evidence that would suggest that that was not what happened and someone else may have killed April, and it may be somebody that she knows very, very well. Loved it. Yeah, it was very well done. It was a surprise for me at the end. This one reminds me of The Fugitive. If you've ever seen that movie, it's one that I have remembered. And so I would say that this one, I don't know that I can pinpoint an Agatha Christie that this one is like, but I would have to give that some thought because I don't know. But nevertheless, 0 Days. This is an exclusive Barnes& and Noble edition. I try to get those when I can as well. And this one is a book that was published in 2023. So this one is about Jacinta, I think her name is, or Jacinta, but they call her Jack and her husband Gabe, and they are technology specialists and they work for organizations and they try to bust up in on their records so that they can show the organization where they're, vulnerable, where they're able to be hacked into. So that's their main job. And so they do a lot of secretive things so that nobody at the company knows in case somebody there is, responsible, right? And they go into these organizations. She goes in physically, Gabe goes in electronically, and they try to figure out whether or not somebody could, go into their systems and take money or do something horrible. That's what they're paid to do. They're paid great money. They're very good at it. So the beginning of the book, you're following Jack as she's trying to work through this one particular place, and they're a great team, but something happens that goes terribly wrong while she's there. And then she arrives home and finds out that her husband Gabe is dead. And worse than that, the police think that it's her. There are some things that make them think that it's her. So she's suddenly on the run and has to try to find out while she's on the run what happened. Again, the fugitive, what happened that would have made her seem to be a suspect and who killed her husband, right? Because that's her main question. Who killed my husband? I did like this one. I think, give this one 4 stars as well. It was it was fast paced, but there were moments where I remember kind of at the end thinking, oh, when are you going to get here, Jack? When are you going to, and she is like, her journey is difficult. Let me just say that. Really challenging. Her hiding and all of that stuff is really challenging, but it's also very suspenseful. The next one I can say is probably my least favorite. I'm going to be honest about that. Maybe though, because the trope is probably my least favorite too. So this is not, not the isolated mystery trope, because I love that, but this one is One Perfect Couple. I wrote in Goodreads that I gave this 4 stars, but I kind of want to go to Storygraph. I might have given it 3.5. I just remember struggling with this one, and I'm going to tell you why I struggled with this one, and it's because it's about a couple on a reality show. That's my challenge because I'm not really a keen reader or watcher of books about people in reality shows. I don't know why. They just seem so far-fetched and so fabricated. But in this case, it was a mystery and I really enjoyed it. There were moments too where I was like, really? Would that happen? Could that have happened in that way? So it was problematic for me, but I still gave it 4 stars, or at least 3.5. This is also Barnes& and Noble exclusive edition. And this one came out in, sorry, I have to always look at this. I didn't write it down, 2024. This couple, they've been together for a really long time. Her name is Lila, and she has a postdoctoral research project that is not going anywhere for a while. She's loved doing it. She doesn't think, though, that they're going to let her keep doing it because it's not going the way they had planned. She's also in a relationship with, what's his name? Nico, her boyfriend. He's an aspiring actor and he's not successful really at this at all. So the majority of their income is produced by Lila and the work she's doing. So you can imagine that she's really now scared because if her contract is let go, then she won't have the ability to take care of Nico, financially, because he's not a likable guy, let's just say that. But Nico finds out about this opportunity for them to go on this reality show. They can apply to do that. And of course, he wants to do it because he will be then more transformed into being a star, that people will find, him attractive and they will want to hire him for jobs, which currently they are really not doing for Nico. So she finally very reluctantly agrees to do this because she's afraid that they won't be able to pay the rent soon and that those things will all fall away. They end up on a tropical paradise in a boat through the Indian Ocean toward an island called Ever After. I know. It's just like a reality show. And they compete with 4 other couples to win a cash prize at the end. But then things start to go wrong, as most reality shows are filled with challenges that the couples have to complete. This one is too. But as they are starting this process with this group of producers and tech people and all of that have set this up on this island, things start to go incredibly wrong. I know it's a great premise, right? I think I just have this reality show bias inside of me. However, I did enjoy it. I recommend it. It was very well paced. It was very well done. There were just a few moments where I was like, I don't know. What's funny about this is this page somehow got wet. I don't know how that happened, but isn't that kind of funny? They're on this island and I end up probably spilling, it looks like water on it, but I feel terrible. And yet it's kind of like a really serendipitous thing. And then the last one is another exclusive edition from Barnes& and Noble. This is the Woman in Suite 11. This is her most recent release. And this is, as you can see, a sequel to The Woman in Cabin 10. I'm so excited that this is happening, and this is Low again. This came out in July, so I have not had this long. I have not read it yet. I do think I will probably read it before the end of the year because it's calling me every day. Lori, read me, read me. Okay, so this time, Lo is invited to go and to review a hotel experience, and her life has changed a bit since the first one. I don't want to spoil anything about what's going on with Lo, but she has a different kind of experience in life now. Let's just say that. You can read the synopsis if you want to be spoiled, but she ends up going to the shores of Lake Geneva into a chateau. And she's trying to snag an interview with somebody that she thinks will kind of catapult her into more success as well. And then she gets a late night call asking her to come to this person's room. Yeah, nothing good's going to come of that, right? Nothing. So I can't wait to get to this one. I really then will be a Ruth Ware completist for the moment anyway, but I really hope that she continues to publish books for so much longer because I could read these like all the time. Are they popcorn thrillers for me or popcorn mysteries for me? No, I think they're a little bit deeper than that. I think they have a little bit more weight, a little bit more heft. And I think, like I said, they are really good at character development and plot, but also atmosphere. So take a look at Ruth Ware if you haven't already. You probably have. I'm going to try to hold these up without hurting myself. Look at the sprayed edges on that, right? I know. Yeah, this is just such a great stack. I can't even tell you how happy this author makes me. Every time she releases a new novel, I just squeal. I actually forgot to mention this. I did get an arc of The Turn of the Key, and I remember reading the arc on my Kindle in an airplane. So I don't know. I don't remember now where I was going. I just remember reading that arc and loving it. I felt like it was the best possible reading experience because I was in a closed, locked room, right? I was in a flight. I couldn't leave. I loved it. And I don't know why I got so lucky to be granted an arc of The Turn of the Key, but I did. And then of course I loved it so much I went out and bought it. So there you go. But that was a memory I had forgotten to mention when I was talking about that book. Thank you so much for watching. Thanks for supporting this little concept of mine. I can't wait to hear if you're a Ruth Ware fan as well, or if you're not and you're new to Ruth Ware. Let me know if this is something that you will plan to start reading. You do not have to read them in order. I would not say that at all. I guess if I were to rank them, it would be really hard to do that. I don't know that I could because I just really love them all. Obviously, some of them got more stars than others, but they're just so well developed. I just can't even begin to tell you how much I love these. My cousin reads these. My daughter reads these. I keep moving them so I can use them as a little shelf. I would love to know which ones of these you might have read or which ones really stand out to you as books you would like to read. If you're a Ruth Ware completist, do let me know and let me know how you like the last one. No spoilers, please. If you don't want to leave a comment below, you can certainly leave an emoji. You can leave a cruise ship, you can leave an island kind of atmosphere, you could leave a school emoji, whatever you want to, just to let me know that you were here. I love that. I love looking at those emojis. They always make me smile. Thanks for staying with me through this journey. Thanks for watching, and as always, happy reading. Bye.